Hey guys, in today's video we're going to go over some settings inside Ableton Live that will give you a better user experience. Before we begin, just a quick reminder to leave a like down below and hit that subscribe button. This will help me continue to bring valuable content to awesome viewers like you. The first thing we're going to discuss today is buffer size. We actually talked about this in the last video, but I would like to reiterate because by adjusting the buffer rate, you can effectively resolve a couple of big issues. The first of those issues being too much strain on your CPU. Up here in the top right represents your CPU load meter. This meter represents how hard your CPU is working to process the audio and effects being used inside of the project. If you find that your CPU is constantly being maxed out and causing glitches, then your first order defense is to raise the buffer rate. This will give your CPU an additional amount of time to allocate computing power in order to efficiently process the audio. Unfortunately, this does come at a cost because with that additional time comes additional latency. What this means is that there will be a bigger delay between the time you hit play to when the CPU outputs the audio. You will also notice that if you hit a key on your MIDI keyboard, when the latency is high enough, then it'll actually take a split second for the note to start playing. If you need to change your buffer rate, you simply go to Options, Preferences, you go to Audio, and then you'll want to go to your hardware setup. I am using the Mackie Big Knob, so this is the window that pops up with the installed drivers that came with my audio interface. Here we have buffer settings, and from here you can change the buffer size. The goal here is to find a good balance between latency and strain on your CPU. Higher buffer rates equal less strain on the CPU but more latency. Lower buffer rates equals higher strain on your CPU but less latency. So just play around with the different settings and try to find something that works well on both ends of the spectrum. The next thing I want to talk about is Ableton's built-in follow behavior. You can adjust this to your liking, but I personally find follow behavior to be annoying. My logic behind this is that if you really want to scope in on a different section of the song, then I will just simply move to that section. I don't want the scroll head dictating the zone I am seeing or working on. So if you go up here, you'll find this follow button. Just try turning it on and off, and you'll see the differences here that I'm talking about. Some people may find this useful, but I personally just, I don't like the fact that it's moving for me. If I want to move, I'll just come up here and move. But just play around with it and find what you like the best. There are actually additional ways to adjust the scroll behavior, and it's right here. You can either change it to scroll or page. When it's set to scroll and you turn on the follow behavior, it effectively follows the scroll head no matter where it's at. When you change this to page, it won't change your view until it goes past a certain point, and I'll demonstrate this real quick. So then it essentially just cycles through like pages of a book almost. But as I mentioned, I don't like either of these settings or any of the follow behavior. I like to scope in on where I want to be and stay there. So we're just going to turn that off. The next thing I want to cover is right down here, and it is auto assign track colors. I prefer to have this turned off and set all new tracks to be a neutral color like this gray. This is because as I'm working, I will end up recoloring every track based on what it is. So if it's a synth or a drum or a bass line, etc., then I will recolor it based on what it is. This helps me stay organized, and I can't stress enough how important it is to be organized within your projects. It'll save you time and headache whenever you know exactly where everything is and you can navigate easily throughout your project. So to change that, we just want to make sure auto assign track colors is turned off. And then we're going to change the default track color to something neutral like this gray. While we're here, I want you to turn the clip color to be the same as the track color. This also plays into the organization and keeping your project nice and tidy. Later on in this course, I will go over tips for color coding and renaming. This is just so that you can stay organized within your project and feel confident about what you're doing and navigate easily back and forth. The next thing I'd like to show you is the screen brightness and theme. This kind of boils down to preference, but I find the mid-dark theme and about 80% brightness makes Ableton a lot less stressful on the eyes. This whole video is about making your experience in live better, and in my opinion, aesthetics play a pretty big role in that. To adjust those, you just simply use this drop-down box and choose the theme you like, and then adjust the brightness to your liking. All right, the next thing I would like to cover has to do with how plugins and VSTs behave inside of Ableton Live. So if we go down here to plugins, we have these options. I'm just going to go ahead and go over them one by one and discuss what they do and why I have the settings that I have here. So as for multiple plugin windows, what this does is it allows you to have multiple plugin windows open at once. So let's say you have an EQ and you also have a synth. You want to be able to view two of these plugins at once, which obviously these are kind of big to make sense of this scenario, but that's essentially what multiple plugin windows allows you to do. If you turn this off, then it's only going to keep open one at a time. So if we go down here, we try to open this one, it's only going to open that plugin window. If we open up this one again, then it's going to close the other one and open up this one. I prefer to keep that on because I like being able to have multiple plugin windows on at once in case I have a meter or something that I'm using and I want to see what's going on with my sound. The next one is auto hide plugin windows. Essentially, it'll hide the plugins on this track and show the plugins on this track whenever you click over. So if I have this one open and then I have this one open, whenever I swap over to the different track, it will open up the different plugins. If you turn this off, then it will not hide the plugins that are on the different tracks. So that's why I like to keep this one on. The last one on this list is auto open plugin windows, and what this does is whenever you load in a new plugin, it automatically opens that plugin. So let's just bring one more in, and as you can see, it automatically opens it up, which I like this feature to be on because if I'm going to open up a plugin to use it, then I want to be able to see it right away and make adjustments. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is how Ableton warps or time stretches different samples. So assuming these settings are set to auto warp, then whenever you drag in a sample, and let's say that sample is at 90 beats per minute, and your project is at 120 beats per minute, then Ableton would effectively try to convert that sample into to where it fits inside of your project and matches up with your BPM. But I've noticed that more often than not, whenever these settings are set to where it does it automatically, that Ableton will try to use its algorithm to to match the sample up with your BPM, but it almost always does not work correctly. Maybe it's just my luck, but that's just been my experience with auto warping. So for that very reason, I like to turn off all the auto warping features. And the first one you'll want to turn off is this loop/warp short samples option. You'll want to change this to unwarped one shot. This will prevent short samples from being warped. And then you'll want to make sure that auto warping long samples is also turned off. This will prevent Ableton from automatically warping or time stretching the samples that you bring into your project. I found that it's quicker to just drag in the samples you have and try to warp it yourself, whereas relying on the auto warping sample just adds an extra step to that, especially if it gets it wrong the first time. The next thing I want to talk about is this create fades on clip edges option. What this does is whenever you drag in an audio sample, let's just pick something here. Basically, if this feature was on, then Ableton would create a very short fade at the beginning and I believe at the end of this sample. It would look similar to that. With audio clips, it automatically has these adjustable fades that you can play with to fade audio in or out. But let's say you had a kick drum that you brought in and you had this create fades on clip edges turned on, then it would have a very tiny fade at the beginning of that kick, and that would effectively mess with the transient of that kick. So that way you couldn't properly hear the transient because it would be literally fading in. For that reason, I just like to keep this option turned off. The last thing I want to talk about in this video is the info view. And if you look at the bottom left section of this screen, you'll notice this little box. It's called the info view. Basically, anytime you're hovering over something, it will pop up with different information based on what your cursor is hovering above. This will help you find different information based on what you're playing around with and really just help you get a better idea of what a given function might do. On that note, I just want to thank you guys for watching today. I really hope I made your Ableton experience just a little bit better. Until next time, take care and have an amazing day.